All right, let's jump right into this explainer with a pretty wild hypothetical. I want you to just pause and imagine for a second. What would our world actually look like if it wasn't a sphere?
I mean, really think about it. What if the Earth actually was flat? Would we just fall off, spin straight into the edge? If we temporarily suspend reality and look at the actual physics of a disk-shaped planet, well, things get so much weirder than you might think. What's absolutely fascinating here is how this completely flips our everyday understanding of gravity. On our spherical Earth, gravity pulls in the exact same direction from all points on the surface, just straight down toward the center. But on a disk-shaped Earth, gravity would entirely depend on where you're standing. In the dead center of the disk, sure, it pulls you straight down. But as you start walking toward the edges, gravity wouldn't just pull you down anymore. It would literally start dragging you sideways, violently pulling you right back toward the center.
And the consequences of that sideways gravity? Honestly, they're just absurd. First off, all of the ocean water would be constantly pulled toward the center of the disk. You'd have this massive, bulging ocean right in the middle. And trees? Trees would literally have to grow diagonally just to fight against that sideways pull and stay upright. It's crazy to picture. Plus, if you were some brave explorer trying to walk out to the edge of the world, that increasing sideways gravity would make every single step feel like you were climbing a never-ending, impossibly steep mountain.
And let's follow this to its completely fatal conclusion. A flattened Earth wouldn't have the internal layers our planet has now. So, step 1, you lose the molten liquid core. Step 2, because the movement of that core creates our magnetic field, a flat Earth means a total loss of that protection. Which brings us to step 3. Every living thing on the surface just gets completely cooked by cosmic radiation. Basically, we'd all just be sitting on a giant space pan with absolutely nowhere to go.
Thankfully, we are not cooking on a space pan. Which brings us to section 1. 2,000 years of proof how humanity found the truth without modern technology.
It is incredibly awe-inspiring to look back and realize we've known this wasn't a flat disk way before satellites or the internet even existed. Way back in the 3rd century BC, Greek philosophers had already figured out the Earth was round. Then, around 240 BC, a Greek mathematician named Eratosthenes made the very first scientific estimates of the Earth's circumference. Fast forward a bit to 150 AD, and Ptolemy publishes Geographia, assigning these revolutionary global mapping coordinates, latitude and longitude, to over 8,000 places. And, you guessed it, those coordinates only work if the Earth is actually round.
I absolutely love the story of Eratosthenes because it's just brilliantly simple. He noticed that on June 21st, in the town of Sienne, he could see the sun's reflection at the very bottom of a deep well. That meant the sun was directly overhead. But 800 kilometers north in Alexandria, at the exact same time, the sun was casting a shadow at an angle of about 7 degrees. Now think about it. If the Earth were actually flat, the sun's angle would be identical in both places. Because it wasn't, he took that 7-degree difference, which is roughly 1/50th of a circle, multiplied the 800-kilometer distance by 50, and calculated a circumference astonishingly close to what we know it is today. He did all of that with shadows and a well. Incredible.
But it wasn't just mathematicians crunching numbers. Ordinary people were breaking out of their geocentric mindsets just through everyday observations. Sailors, for instance, gathered evidence by simply watching ships come into port. They'd always see the top of the mast peek over the horizon before the hull appeared. They'd look up at the night sky and see that all the other planets and celestial objects were spheres. And during a lunar eclipse, they could literally look up and see the Earth casting a distinctly curved shadow right across the moon.
So keeping all of that ancient proof in mind, we arrive at section 2, the flat Earth comeback. Why is a debunked theory rising in the 21st century?
It is genuinely baffling, right? But the interest is spiking hard. Google searches for the term flat Earth haven't just grown, they've literally tripled over the last couple of years. And get this, it's not just a quiet little internet niche anymore. Everyone from famous musicians to professional basketball players and TV hosts are publicly jumping on the flat Earth bandwagon, and they're bringing millions of their fans right along with them. And a recent YouGov poll found something that's frankly unbelievable. A full 1/3 of Americans polled actively believe the Earth is flat. 1 in 3. Think about that for a second. That is a massive portion of the population actively doubting overwhelming, highly observable scientific evidence. So, we really have to ask why. Why now? Dr. Jennifer Beckett from the University of Melbourne points out something crucial here.
She explains that this isn't about people suddenly forgetting physics. No, it's a profound sociological shift. It's rooted in this rising wave of populism and a deep, systemic distrust of traditional experts. I'm talking about academics, scientific agencies, the government. When you stop trusting the traditional gatekeepers of knowledge, suddenly any alternative theory starts looking like a totally viable option.
And who fills the void when people stop trusting those traditional experts? Well, social media influencers. Today, a charismatic influencer can easily hold more sway than an expert who studied astrophysics for 40 years simply because they're engaging storytellers. They look right into the camera, speak conversationally, and people naturally gravitate toward that. Audiences perceive them as authentic and real. They end up completely bypassing their own critical skepticism just because the person on the screen feels relatable, even if the information they're sharing is entirely false.
Which brings us to the machinery behind all this. Section 3. The social media ecosystem. How the internet traps us in an alternative reality.
Let's look at how this perfectly feeds these fringe beliefs. The Flat Earth community has built a brilliantly effective, if a bit troubling, ecosystem across different platforms. YouTube acts as the primary content hub. It's essentially an alternative documentary channel where the big ideas are pitched. Facebook then serves as the administrative one-stop shop, the place where local chapters organize and communities bond. And Twitter? Well, Twitter is the megaphone, continually pushing out the messaging and getting those hashtags trending. They all work together perfectly to surround a user in an isolated bubble of believers. But YouTube is absolutely the powerhouse here. It's what experts call a high-context platform, offering an extreme level of intimacy. Dr. Beckett actually likens it to having direct personal access to someone like David Attenborough. Imagine watching a nature documentary, leaving a comment with a question, and then the host literally answers your specific question in their next video. That intense personal connection makes viewers feel deeply valued. It makes them incredibly loyal to the creator and, frankly, incredibly receptive to whatever reality that creator is selling.
And the reason we're all so vulnerable to this, it comes down to a concept called being an affect addict. As we rely more and more on our social feeds, we kind of become addicted to the intense emotional hits they provide. Whether it's a sudden spike of righteous anger, the thrill of uncovering a hidden secret, or just a quick burst of happiness. When we're just blindly scrolling looking for that next emotional hit, wild misinformation becomes incredibly easy to swallow. It's exactly why massive groups of people can so easily be convinced that the United Nations logo is actually a secret flat Earth map hidden in plain sight. It gives them that rush of feeling like they're in on the big secret.
So, as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a lingering thought. We know the Earth is round, right? But in a modern world where we are constantly craving our next emotional hit, and where a good storyteller can easily trump a dry scientific fact, how do we protect the truth? How do we ensure we aren't just believing a really good story over actual reality? It's something we all need to seriously think about. Thanks for joining me on this explainer, and keep questioning what you see out there.